Morgan got moved.
Morgan, you moved?
Hey, I moved, yeah.
Oh yeah?
I'm closer to my school now.
Nice. Can you walk?
No, but I'm on a bike if the weather allows it, or as long as the weather allows it.
Mm-hmm.
So Morgan, where were you living and where are you now?
I spent about the last year where my roommates were my parents.
Oh, yay.
It was really nice. I saved some money and now I'm moved and getting things back and running.
Cool. Well, that's always a lot of work to get moved, so.
I don't ever want to do it again. I'm still like shaky about it. Ugh, the worst.
It's stressful for sure.
Yeah.
Moving back from Montana was one of the most stressful things I think I've ever done.
Yeah.
That's a long way.
Yeah,
what if you forget something?
Yeah, I know, right? No professional movers, just my little brother brought his truck and we rented a big old U-Haul trailer and did it all.
I remember we were like, this is Jenga in real life. Like trying to get everything in there. Like I was like, this is bad. Like something is gonna break or someone is gonna break. Like my
bike's still on top. That's what I remember he told me.
That was not good.
We had professional movers coming from Minnesota and they misplaced our stuff for a couple of weeks. Our stuff was supposed to get out here June 25th and it didn't get out until like this time. So we were just living out here without stuff except for, you know, the suitcases that we brought of clothes.
Yeah, when we moved here from Illinois, my husband had gotten out of the military, and so they'll pay to move you back like the same distance from wherever you came from when you enlisted. So we used it to move back to Oregon instead of California, and we had the same thing happen, and I had to like interview for a job wearing like my mom's like jacket. I was like,
oh, I went to the store and I grabbed interview clothes.
Yeah, it was
just bought new stuff.
Yeah, it was like, hey, I'm back. And I don't usually dress like my mom, but you know. Okay, it's 10 o'clock, so let's get going. We kind of swapped roles this time, so I'm gonna go first, and then Karla's gonna take over.
So before we get started, this is Hickory. He wanted to join class today. He'll probably be gone by the time I come back in, so I wanted to let you meet Hickory. It's my baby. So, all right, go forward, Courtney.
Okay. Also, since we're talking about things like dogs, as always, if you have a little person or whatever interfere with this, that is totally fine. I'm flying solo with my kids, so anything could happen. I let them watch a movie, but you know,
never know.
Never know. So today what we're going to do is, in lieu of usually every week you guys have an online activity that you participate in, and instead of doing that virtually this week, you're going to work in person in groups. So we're going to be talking a lot this week about manipulatives, and unfortunately we are not face-to-face, so you can't actually physically work with the manipulatives, which is a bummer. In the settings that you've been in so far in your teaching career, how often do you see classrooms use manipulatives? What pros do you find with students using them? What cons or challenges are there? Like, talk to me about how familiar you are.
In the math series class that Josh, I'm trying to, Lori Burton taught, I guess. Obviously, we got a good chunk of information about it. I was real bummed because I work technically in a special ed environment, and there are almost no manipulatives available for the kids. But we're not really, I mean, we are a school, but we're a mental health treatment center first. But that doesn't give the excuse for not having the right stuff. There is a special ed teacher there, and she should know that we should have manipulatives.
Yeah.
Because we have kids that don't understand the concepts of like really what it means for like the hundreds place and those type of things, and wouldn't be that hard to teach them if we had the right tools.
Yeah, place value chips, for example, right? Yeah. Anybody else?
I would say like maybe once a year, like one short kind of unit, I see them being used. And I'd say like the biggest con obviously is like the kids just like to mess around, you know? And then it's like, okay, it's more about like getting them to use them and like stop playing with them and building things than it is about the actual content sometimes. But I think it depends on the teacher too. Like, I mean, that can obviously be combated with like more like structure and a little bit more maybe like teaching ahead of time about it and stuff. But otherwise, I think kids, you know, I think they like using it from what I've seen. It's definitely a fun thing for them. So,
Right. And it's a little bit more concrete.
yeah.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Go ahead, Isaiah.
Sorry, on my phone I can't see everyone at once, so I don't know if I'm going to take someone's turn by jumping in. You know, Salem Kaiser, you know, we adapted iReady Math relatively recently, and I've seen manipulative usage just plummet with that curriculum. So
iReady Math. I don't know this. Sorry.
it's a Pearson program that they designed theoretically to match with Common Core. And I'm saying Pearson because they're the big publisher over here. You know, it's a side company that actually, you know,
Yeah.
it's all the textbook stuff is a mess. But
they don't get to. It's pretty anti-manipulative, or the use of manipulative is dropped.
Not so much anti-manipulative as it is pro-text. Like every kid has a workbook with them for like the entirety of every lesson, right? And so that's where most of their focus really is, on the workbook, on PowerPoints. And like, yes, there are ways you can use manipulatives in there. The book mentions ways to use manipulatives, but it's not really embedded in the structure, and so it gets pushed to the wayside. Yeah, but before that became a thing, manipulative use was pretty heavy in the district. I remember one first grade class, in response to Danielle's thoughts there. What she had going on was often during like free time or during centers, right? There would be unguided, unstructured manipulative use. So kids would be on their own, just finding patterns between things and putting this on that and see what happens. And that was, you know, at the start of the year, I think a really good way to get these, you know, just out of kindergarten kids to build some basic number sense, pattern recognition, and so on, that can be built on in actual lessons. So.
Yeah. And that was actually going to be my suggestion about when people struggle with manipulatives and they say like, all they do is build towers with Unifix cubes.
Let them build a tower.
Or fidget spinners. Like in my classroom, they tried to make little like top things. Whatever. But if you let them actually do that without having, you know, at a time that, like Isaiah was saying, that's not when you're using them to work, that can be really helpful. Leah, what were you going to hop in and contribute?
Oh, I was just gonna say we actually use Bridges for our K through second graders, and so it's manipulative heavy, that program. Yeah, I just got an email from them saying that they're rolling out individual manipulatives for every student now. For yeah, they're providing it. Yeah. So that's going to really help with everyone having their own supplies. And then we use My Math for 3rd through 6th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade. I don't know. No, 5th grade, 3rd through 5th. And they have kits that come with the curriculum, but I don't see those teachers using them as often. So we definitely advocate for them to use them. I've even gone into their classrooms and done some lessons with them. So just trying to get them to use them more, but it's definitely available, and I'm definitely part of it. And I think a lot of the problem with those 3rd through 5th graders is there's the My Math curriculum is an intensive program, and just trying to get through that curriculum. They're more focused on that. And I keep telling them, if your kids aren't struggling, slow down, use the manipulatives, take that extra time. That's more important than getting through the curriculum.
Well, you want to like really teach to the concept, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I just think that's way more important than them getting through all the lessons and then kids still don't know most of it.
Well, I mean, you have a pacing guide. Like I see the rub for sure. We, in my old district, we taught Eureka math.
Mm.
Used to be called Engage New York.
Engage New York. Yes. Yeah. I'm familiar with that one also.
Like a publishing battle, you know, it always
Yeah,
makes it money.
right. Which that has a lot of good, I've heard pros and cons, and I know other teachers that still use it.
I love it. I think
it has a lot of good features in it that I actually was like pulling from.
I think it has a lot of benefits. We would be like doing a deep dive together if we were in person, but we're not.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, that's a little tangent. So what we're gonna do, it sounds like we all kind of have had some experience with manipulatives, and so what we're gonna do next is not gonna be like brand new or earth-shattering, but I still think it's a really good use of your time. So when you go into the Moodle page, hold on, I wanna actually, let's see if I can share my screen and you actually see things. I like to think of myself as techie. I know I say this every time, and it stresses me out when it doesn't work how I want. Okay. So when you go into the Moodle site, you're going to see a manipulative task card. And I'm going to break you up into breakout rooms. And we don't have enough of you to have partnerships for all of these because there's more choices. You know, there's only, what, how many of you are here today? One. So yeah, so you are going to choose a manipulative. So you're going to see there's fractions, geoboard, pattern shapes, number pieces, flip chips or coins, and color tiles. And you are going to have about 5 minutes. You're going to go onto the Math Learning Center app page. You're just going to play around with it like we talked about. You know, there's no purpose for a couple minutes. I just want you to like play around with it, see how it works. And then you are going to, after you've done that, working with your partner, you are going to, if I go back a page, can you see this? The middle page? Yes, okay. You're going to go and go to manipulative activities for all grades. You're going to click on that. You're going to click on grade 3. And then you're going to choose the area that aligns with the manipulative you chose. So when you look at that task card, you're going to see that they're broken down by, oops, sorry about that. They're broken down by area. So like if you want to look at like numbers and operations, then you're going to want to look at the fractions manipulative. If you're thinking about like geometry, you have 2 different choices. Does that make sense to you? So you're going to choose one of those areas and you're going to look at that lesson. Grade 3, nope. We're going to do fractions. You're going to look at this lesson, and then I want you to think about how you might be able to adapt or use this as a starting off place to really work with manipulatives and the standard and how you can really use that to build upon your, for students for understanding. Because as we just talked about earlier, and the task card, I'm giving you a brief overview of the task card, but the task card is going to give you more specifics. So the purpose of this time spent with your group is that I want you to really think about like how this activity uses manipulatives in a way to engage the students also so that they're engaged in the learning, but they're also really working on that conceptual understanding of the concept. And the other thing that I want you to do, actually, we'll just do that later. So first, I'm going to break you up into breakout groups. You're going to look at that task card. You're going to play around with your manipulatives. And then I want you to just really analyze and look at that lesson and that activity and have a discussion around how manipulatives can really support that work. Now let's see how I can do this. Okay. Oh no, Karla, wait, I found it.
I am here stalking you.
Yeah, I know. Judging me. Okay. All the judgment.
Never.
You could. It's totally fine. I trust you. Okay. Do you guys have, never mind. Then you're going to have actually one group of 3. So Isaiah, Morgan, and Leah, you're going to all be working together. Okay? Okay. Let's see what happens. Did it work? Can you go? Woohoo! Okay. Okay, Danielle and Rachel, or not Rachel.
No.
Danielle. Talk to me about your guys' manipulative. What did you find? What were your findings?
Go ahead, Nacho.
Nacho, I made you not do geo boards.
You don't want me to, yeah, I know. You know, I won't be Rachel. That's okay. So we chose the pattern shapes, and they were a lot more versatile than we thought because we actually didn't end up using them to solve the original problem that we thought. We assumed we would be going for geometry, but then we actually learned that it's actually really broad and that we could use it to easily do the number and operations for fractions. Because understanding parts of a whole and having that like concrete shapes as those parts is really helpful. So that's what we ended up changing to.
Well, and I like what Susie said about, you know, being able to use it for younger kids. I was kind of thinking that we could also use this just to like teach like basic fraction understanding and just play with it. And it's not like we even, you know, they don't have to know everything, but just putting the pieces on the shaded parts and kind of talking to them and introducing it that way. Yeah, Susie just, you know, kind of, when she said that, I was like, oh, we could do that with with ours too. So, yeah.
Yeah.
In line to the standards for mathematical practice, we did look for and make sense of structure. So it's just having that concrete examples of how to use different things to fit different shapes. Because I mean, so frequently kids have no idea what fractions really are. And then to be able to physically put it together is usually one of the only ways to make it click. So.
Yeah. What do you think the advantages are of having a virtual option for this tool?
I really like what Courtney said about just being able to clear it and start over, and you don't have a bunch of kids looking for different pieces. I don't have a yellow one. I don't have like, guess what? Everybody's got infinite numbers of the same stuff, and we clean up like that.
And you can change the colors too. It's like you can, you know, you can have a lot of fun with it. So.
It is fun. That actually is true. It does look like kids could really have fun on that app too. Like you could be pretty creative.
Yeah, and that really helps too with engagement.
Because there were like the like tanagrams that you could do with it as well on there. So like yeah, you could take it a lot of directions.
Okay, last group. Your turn.
I don't know who wants to.
Yeah, I don't know. We did the geo boards too.
What?
Yeah.
You were talking about something completely different.
Oh, I know. We were. Well,
we got distracted by the geo boards.
You got distracted. Okay. Well.
Yeah, we were looking at the base 10 too, huh? Yeah.
We originally started with the number pieces. That's what they were called, right? Number pieces.
Yeah.
And it's cool. It offers a lot of dimensions, I would say. So it starts with dollars, and I think there's a 50-cent piece, quarters, dimes, and it uses money as representation. But behind that, they have what are those number pieces, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I got tricked up by the name.
The money in with the base 10 pieces.
So it's a technology aspect that really ties in decimals, fractions, percentages, also with money that students can see and touch and manipulate as well.
You geo board lovers. what do you think, I know when I popped in on your group, you were talking about like, wow, this has a lot more, connections than you had thought originally. How do you think, I know you said you could use it a lot of different ways, but how do you think that could help students when they're actually like working on an assignment? Or I know you didn't spend time in the task.
In the money pieces?
Yeah. Unless you want to talk more about GeoBoard.
No, that's okay. We have both of them open. You mean actually using the app itself?
Yeah.
Well, I think, I don't know. We didn't get to play a lot with the app. It was just the fact that it directly related to all the amounts.
Yeah.
Was really cool. And then you could, have so many, couple hundreds, and it actually shows, the 200s, the $2, which definitely can be extended into the fractions also.
Yeah.
And face value and all those things, and the decimals, and there's just so many ways that you can get a visual of this. Definitely, I think more useful with the app as far as having the money connected to those number pieces in practicality. I mean, because having those little manipulatives on your table and trying to have the money with it and relate to each other, I could just see where it's going to be way more confusing with the app. It's attached to it, so you're not separating it. It's not all the I think it would be a cool way to introduce it and learn the concept, and then move to having them explore some with their own, with the actual manipulatives. So I think it would be kind of cool to combine the two.
Isaiah, is there anything you wanted to hop in and contribute?
If I could go back to the GeoBoards.
Okay. Hi.
We'll just give you both.
We started playing in our group with how we could get the engineering and such component in there.
Yeah.
Which for me, one limitation of the online thing is the infinite stretch of it. You can get a lot of engineering challenges and tasks out of the limitations of the sizes of rubber bands. How do you make a shape you can make with a big rubber band, with 3 smaller rubber bands and so on, like that. The physical limitations, I think, have merit in certain situations.
Yeah.
Heidegger would have loved that, Isaiah.
Yeah, we were talking about like with the engineering, how your GeoBoard could act as your basically like your template of the structure you're going to make or something, like planning it out and on the GeoBoard, and then using those things to make your structure and stuff. So there's just some neat other things you can use for it, other than just building in. For the 3rd grade standards, basically it was just identifying and building those shapes. Where in the it talks more about tying it into fractions.
And I'm really glad that you brought that up, because the other part of what I wanted you to see with manipulatives and what we worked on with the literacy work last week is that like there is so much opportunity to use mathematics in other areas, like obviously in STEM, right? That lends itself really well, but you can really find ways to incorporate mathematics throughout your day in different ways. And I think that is really powerful for kids. So, because it's very easy to think about math as something that you do like from 9 to 10,
Right.
And so if you can think about like, when you're teaching a history unit and you're making a timeline, you can incorporate measurement, right? Or if you're talking about other areas of your content and your curriculum, how you can really weave those together. And I think that that's really powerful. I had like something else planned, but it's like 10:50, and I want to go through a couple other things really quickly for you before Karla gets her turn. So the first thing that I want to highlight is I've really been impressed with your lesson plans. I think you guys have been doing a really nice job. A couple things that And I grade it. You should have grades for your first lesson plan, the literature lesson plan that you turn in on Sunday, and going to be working on this afternoon. But one thing I want you to think about when you're writing a lesson plan is always remember that mathematical standard or standards of mathematical practice. Like you want to think about a content standard and a standards of mathematical practice. Like how are you going to support in both of those areas? Because often we get really stuck on our curriculum map and like hitting the content, but I want you to also really think about how can I weave in the standards for mathematical practice. Does anybody have any questions about that? No? Okay. And then the other thing that I want to encourage you about like overall as a group, and I've seen it in some plans, but is I really want you to think about the language that you're using with your students to support the discourse that you're having around mathematics. So it's really easy to say like, I'm going to have students do a subtraction problem, and then they're going to give me this answer, right? But I want you to think through about how are you going to ask those questions? What kinds of answers are you looking for? What kinds of solutions or ways to getting, you know, different solutions are you looking for, so that you kind of anticipate both the correct answer and also where might a student be stuck, like where might misconceptions be, so that you're ready to address those. The last thing that I want to talk about is your journal project overview, and you can see that if you go into our Moodle page and you click on journal project overview, and this is going to be due our last week, but I wanted to talk to you about it now because you can start working on it. When you, hold on, when you click on that link, it's going to open up a document. Why? Hold on, sorry guys. What is going on? Well, there you are, but okay. So it's going to open up a document, and I want to talk about the journal project. Now this says absence assignment, and just disregard that. But you're going to have 1 year of the journal teaching children mathematics. I have it already for you in a Google folder. I want you to read through each issue of that journal, and then I want you to identify articles or resources that you feel would be useful for you as a teacher. So 1 to 3 articles or resources from each issue, okay? And then you're going to create an annotated bibliography that includes the citation. Remember, we're working in APA for each resource. And you want to have like a 2 to 3 sentence statement explaining why you found this helpful, why you chose to include it in your journal project. And then you are going to post your annotated bibliography into Moodle. And our last week together, you're going to present at least 1 resource that you feel is worthwhile. You guys are all kind of working on, you know, I only could access 1 digital year, so that I gathered for you. So I'm hopeful that we don't have another like geo board situation. And that there's some like, you know, difference in the choices that we find. But you want to be ready to talk about your resource and why you find it, why you feel that this will be helpful for you as an educator. If you want to, I collected that 1 year for you in a Google folder so that you didn't have to spend your time hunting, because that can take a long time. If you want to branch out and find a different year, you are more than like, go for it. But in the like interest of time, I wanted to make sure that you had that resource for you. So if you do choose to do a different year, please let me know. And I'm 5 minutes early. Karla. Does anybody else have any questions or any? Yeah.
So I never did annotated bibliographies in my undergrad, and I've done like one or two in this program, but I still don't feel like I have a good like idea of like the formatting, because like I kind of just Googled what it might look like, and then like with talking with some of the my peers, it's like, okay, mine might be a little bit different looking. And so do you have like a structure you prefer for that? I just want to make sure I do it right, if that makes sense.
So Karla, do you have one that you were really like, in my experience, you always just have your APA citation and then you have
Little blurb.
but did you do something different?
No, I mean, that is what it looked like, but I don't know. I feel like maybe, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, that is what it, so like just a few sentences, like synthesizing it kind of thing. Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Then
Danielle, I have in our shared Google Drive, there are, because we're going to be talking about one that you're doing for your STEM practices project.
We didn't even talk about this. Crazy.
And, there are examples in there. I will say that neither Courtney or I are APA Nazis. We're not going to go through and make sure you have every period in the right place. We're more focused on, are your citations usable? So if I wanted to go and find that resource, would I be able to find it? And do you give a good enough description of it that it's useful for me to tell what the resource is about? So there are, I think, at least a dozen examples in our Google Share Drive, and for you to look at, and you'll notice that some of them are a little different, but they're all based. So the citation should be double spaced, follow APA citation format. Really, again, that's not the focus. It's really about you guys creating resources that are going to be useful to you as teachers going forward.
And that's really the purpose of this project. It's because I want you to have access to resources that you will find useful in your practice. And you all are probably going to be in a variety of grade levels and ages, and and so that means what Nacho's going to find helpful for him might be very different than what Susie needs, right? And that's the purpose of it. And also when you're talking about, when you're giving that little description, I'm not really interested in like, this was so good. Like, well, okay, great. But what about the resource did you find powerful or useful? Why would you want to look at that again?
How might you use it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So can we add, like, so we have our citation, and then in a paragraph after that, there's like 2 sentences of what the resource was, and then 2 about why we picked it, all in that same paragraph?
That'd be perfect.
Awesome, thanks.
And yeah, like Karla said, I am not an APA Nazi at all. But at the same time, I want to give, academic credit where it's due. Like, that's very important. So I hope that you found our manipulative activity. Yes, Courtney.
Just a clarification on the using both math standards in the mini lessons. What exactly do you mean by that?
Okay, so when you look at the, did you download the app on your phone?
Not on my phone, it's on my computer.
Okay, so even you can do it when you like Google Common Core State Standards. When you look at Common Core State Standards, you're gonna see content standards, that's like the math, like addition, subtraction, fractions, right? Then you're also going to see that you have another set of standards called the Standards for Mathematical Practice. Those are like making use and sense of structure, finding patterns, defending your reasoning, and critiquing the reasoning of others. Okay, and so you want to have in your lessons, you want to have one standard that is content, like fractions, and then one standard that is from the standards of mathematical practice. And the reason for that is that you're building a lesson that like not only is teaching students about working with fractions, but also is supporting them in maybe looking at their partner's work and having like a dialogue about the process, because that's a really important part of being a mathematician. Does that help you at all?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, yeah, and my students always got mad at me because they'd be like, look, I'm done. And I'd be like, great, tell me about it, because you need to actually be able to defend your thinking. It's not as much rote, which we learned as learners. So, oh man, I was early, but I'm not anymore. Okay. If you need anything or you have any questions, please email me. I try to be pretty quick on my response. If you don't hear back from me, email me again. It's usually because of my children mutiny against me. Thank you for our time together, you guys.
Okay, so I think I will let you guys go ahead and take a break and relax for a few minutes. So why don't we plan on coming back at 10 after, and we'll try to get all of our work done in 15 minutes this time, since we got extra time last week. So I'll see you at 11:10, and we'll get started.
Weeks. That's one course in 3 weeks. It should be the same workload we have now, just all on one subject, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I like that mentality. I'm with it.
If it's with Dr. Schultz.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. We had him last term too. I really enjoy him, but 3 weeks of course is a little intimidating. So
Yeah, it's very fast paced. So
Yeah.
a lot to do. Even 6 weeks is hard. When
Yes.
we're trying to cram 10 weeks. Really, we're trying to cram 14 weeks worth of work into 10 normally, and then we squish it into 6. It just keeps getting more and more condensed.
Right. Well, and especially with the online, because I know last summer we were face to face, we had all day, like 2 whole weeks. And so
Yeah. That's how we taught this class last summer, and it was so at the last minute we were having to put it all online, and it's hard to, you just don't get the opportunity to have those discussions and really dive deeper into and like look at the curriculums we're talking about, and read children's books, and
Right.
do some science engagement activities. Yeah, I don't like it. I'm ready to be back to face, but I also want everybody to stay safe. So,
Definitely.
all right, well, we're going to go ahead and get started. So really, this class, this Zoom meeting is going to be a lot of you guys talking to each other, since we have a couple of projects that you've completed, and the first one being your STEM brief. So our agenda, which I'll share real quick, is I'm going to have you guys talk in your small groups and go over kind of what your topic was for your STEM brief and what you found out. So it's going to be pretty brief. And then we're going to actually talk about the technology that you use to modify the project learning tree activities. And that we'll do as a whole group, and I'll give you, it's just going to be about 3 minutes each to just highlight how you adapted that. And then we'll spend the last several minutes talking about your upcoming projects that are the last 2 that are going to be due for this course. So there'll be a lot of collaborative learning going on, I hope, which is how I tend to facilitate my course more when we're face to face. So any questions before we get started talking about the STEM briefs, about assignments or what you've done? Or okay, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to put you in random groups. There'll be 1 or 2 groups that have 3 and 1 group that has 2. It looks like I can keep you in the same groups you were in if you want, or I can mix you all up. What do you think? You want new groups, or you're good? We'll start with, we'll go ahead and just keep you in the same groups for now. Okay, so I'll pop in just to hear you discuss what you did for your briefs briefly, and then I'll give you about 10 minutes to do this. So think about that in terms of how many there are in each group, and making sure that each person has at least a couple minutes to talk about their topic. Any questions?
Are we only talking about the brief on this first one?
Yes. So we'll come back all together, and then you'll share about your technology project.
Okay.
Good question. Okay, I'll see you in your breakout room. Evelyn, you're going to get sent to, okay, looks like you did. Okay, it looks like everybody is back. I know that's hard to get kind of pulled back suddenly into a whole group, and we never, it seems like, have enough time to discuss enough. And but I did pop in and I heard some really great discussions, and sounds like you really got some good information about lots of different topics. And I think it would be beneficial for you to have access to what each other did on those topics, because those are topics that are important in STEM. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to upload your briefs into the shared Google Drive so you have access to everybody else's and their resources and references if you want to access those. So some really great topics. I know Evelyn's was on STEM funding and how to apply for money for STEM, which is an important piece that is very relevant to teachers who never have enough money and are expected to do all these amazing things. And we had some other really interesting topics, girls in STEM, and still a very challenging thing to keep women and young women engaged in STEM, but also minorities. So Nacho did a really interesting brief on differentiation and special education in STEM, and really some great strategies that you'll need to know to be able to do this kind of work with the students in your classroom and engage all students. So I'll definitely have those available, and I know there's never enough time, but when you're teaching and you think about that student, you think, oh my gosh, how am I going to reach that student? Oh, maybe there was something in that brief that that Nacho did that might be useful in giving me some strategies. So again, we're just not going to have enough time, I don't think, for everybody to, oh, my watch is going off again. It's the hand gestures. It thinks I'm working out. It used to do that in class all the time too. So I'm going to break you up into just 2 groups, and I'm going to have you share your technology adaptations, and that way you'll have a little more time to talk about it with each other, and it won't feel so rushed. And then I'll pop in. And again, I think what I'll do is provide an opportunity to share those on our Google Drive so that you have each other's. And then when we come back, we'll share briefly if you have anything really fabulous you think everybody should know about. So before I move you into groups to talk about your technology, is there anybody who wanted to share something they learned during their brief, or that they think everybody should at least have some information about? Go ahead, Danielle.
So Nacho had some great points, as you said, about, differentiating and whatnot. And so something that stood out to me was just about having like a schedule for students. They know like what's coming up and have an idea of what to expect, especially kids who have autism. I just think that's a great point, and it's just an easy thing to do, and you can easily kind of also forget to do something like that, but it makes like a world of difference for that student. So I just thought it was kind of cool.
Yeah, I was really interested in, both of you had some great ideas for differentiation, and we'll talk about that when we look at the backwards design template. And so we often think of differentiation as something we do for the whole class, like, or generic, like, oh, I'm going to give the student extra time to finish their work, which in reality is not a very good accommodation, and often is very hard to actually provide that time. And so things like providing a schedule on their desk, or giving them a script of the lesson and steps to follow, those are very individual and are created and designed for that specific student. And that's the kind of differentiation we need to think about as teachers. So those are really great ideas. Any other comments you want to share?
Walk briskly during the warm up.
Okay, well, I'm going to split you into 2 groups and I'll have you just take I'll give you about 18 minutes so you probably have about 4 minutes each to talk about your technology and how you adapted the PLT lesson. And I'll pop back in. Any comments or questions before I send you out? Okay, see you in the room.